Hi, God bless everyone. God bless you, ma'am. So, by the way, my name is Mary Corti Cavaras from Bisbee Department. So, for this video, I will discussing about the natural law of Saint Thomas Aquinas. So, first, learning outcomes. So, at the end of this chapter, you should be able to first recognize of natural law and its relation to ethics. Number two, explain how natural law is an imprint of the divine will on the free person. 3. Appreciate and articulate the role of natural law in crafting an ethical life. And lastly, discuss conscience and how this is defined by natural law. So, Saint Thomas Aquinas, an Italian Catholic priest who belongs to the religious order of preachers or Dominicans. So, Saint Thomas Aquinas was born in 1225. So, the title Aquinas identifies his place of origin, Aquino, which belonged originally to the kingdom of Naples and about 120 kilometers south of Rome. So Saint Thomas Aquinas was the doctor of the Roman Catholic Church, and Saint Thomas Aquinas was born to an affluent and influential family. His father was recognized as the Count of Aquino. His early studies were under the of the Benedictine abbot of Monte Cassino, but at the age of 14. So he controlled at the University of Naples. He was deeply impressed by the Dominicans who he later met at this university that Thomas decided to join the order of preachers at the age of 19 in 1244 instead of the Benedictines who were his first teachers. So Thomas in 1248 studied with Albert the Great 1205 to 1280 in Cologne, recognizing his students as a genius. So Saint Thomas Aquinas is studied in the school in the University of Paris. So he was 18 years of his life were spent on lectures, instructions, writings, and Godlibets. So Thomas died on March 7, 1274, leaving behind him notable works like Summa Contra Gentiles and Summa Theology and De Veritate. So, Saint Thomas Aquinas in the context of the ethics is that Saint Aquinas is the full consideration that would require us to explore his discussion of other matters such as how in our pursuit of happiness we direct our actions toward specific ends. So we might explore how emotions or the passions are involved in this process and therefore require a proper order if they are to properly contribute to a good life. So we might explore how our actions are related to a certain dispositions often referred to as um, that we called habits. So in a dynamic way, since our actions both arise from our habits and at the same time reinforms them. So we might explore his discussion of how we develop either good or bad habits with a good disposition leading us toward making moral choices. So in contributing to our moral virtue and a good and a bad disposition, inclining us toward making immoral choices, bringing us to vice. So, the Christian life, therefore, is about developing the capacities given to us by God into a disposition of virtue inclined towards the good. So next is Etsidis non-deritor, is first Thomas Aquinas begins from the standpoint of faith. His perspective presupposes of existence of a God who is the author or source and the goal or end of all reality. So it means that this creator of Thomas, however, relates in freedom with the human person and to enable him or her in freedom to recognize through reason the very principle of foundations of all things. So, in accordance with the foundational knowledge, the human person can choose to act in such a way that is worthy of one's very reality. So one who can reach the wisdom at the very heart of all things is obliged to act in accordance of his or her dignity. So the human being then is said to be gifted with the ability to know the highest good that engage him or her in freedom in choosing to act on the good that he or she ought to do. So freedom here is knowing the best goal and being able to reach for it through decisive action. So those who came up with the expression "it's just non-deritor" do not advocate atheism or protest against the faith. So they simply mean that the deposit of knowledge or divine wisdom that comes to us natural law that is valid in ourselves. So the reasonable code of conduct even for a man or goodwill who haven't faith or even the sacred scriptures of Christians reflect this. For when non-believers who do not have that law by nature observe the the prescriptions of the law, it means that they show the demands of the law that comes in their hearts. So that is the verse of Aquinas. So next is conscience and natural law. So the ability of man to know is important in his or her acting ethically. So Saint Thomas Aquinas was discussed the conscience that conclude one thing that does not do the right thing if one does not know what it is. So it is the proper functioning of reason in moving the human person towards an end goal that is fitting of his or her dignity. So next is conscience is absolutely binds in doing the good, avoiding the evil. So that is the reason of conscience is absolutely tasked to be given the information. So in addition of the meaning of the conscience is that it can be mistaken and being not exempt the human person from culpability. For example, if he or she is able to know about but fails to act in his or her obligation to do, and then he or she is not free from the responsibility for what he or she has done. So there are the different kinds of conscience that may lead us to wrongdoing. So first we have callous, perplexed, uh, scrupulous, and ignorance. So first is callous. It is the result in the long time persistence in doing evil that the self is no longer concerned whether what he or she does is good or bad. So in perplex, so it is one needs guidance in sorting out one's confusion. So in scrupulous is that is the combination or the same as judgmental. So if the so kanang kwan if the two person nga for example kanang naay mang judge sa imuha without knowing your whole story nga mo direct ra og kanang pang-judge sa imuha maskin wala ka ay maskin wala nimo sila giunsa nga kanang like for example nga kanang moingon siya nga kanang kuan kanang mang-judge ka sa isa ka tawo nga wala jud ka kabalo sa iyang story nganong naing-ana na siya. So mao na siya ang kanang scrupulous. So last is ignorant. So this is understandable kaayo sa ato nga ignorant. So kani po siya dili po ni siya dapat kung ano na to ang isa ka tawo kay we have own perception naman, di ba? So dapat dili ta angay manguan sa mang judge ana then maingon sa isa sa lain nga ana ignorante kay kaning isa ka butang wala ka kabaloy nga ani ana mo ni siya. So instant nga manguan ka siya kanang what we call this kanang mo istorya mang judge or kanang manglibak nga ana imo na siyang tabangan nga in a good way. Next is the natural law. So in natural law promoting the common good in a way of making of a law. So according to Aquinas, law is the essence and varieties of law. So first let's discuss the essence. The essence, as natural beings, we have free will. So, through our capacity for reason, we are able to judge between possibilities and to choose to direct our actions in one way or the others. Our actions are directed toward attaining ends or goods that we desire. So, in the varieties, we have noted either how God, by His wisdom, is the creator of all beings. So by saying this, so we do not only recognize God as the source of these beings, but also acknowledge the way they have been created and the way they could return to Him, which is the work of His divine reason itself. So this includes that the proper measuring, governing the acts of these beings. So Aquinas writes the saying of he governs all the acts and movements that are to be found in each single creator. So the type of divine wisdom as moving all things to their due and bears the character law. So this line involves the assertion that the divine wisdom that directs each being towards its proper and can be called as eternal law. As in the human law, so refers to all instances wherein human beings construct and enforce laws in their communities. So, given the larger picture of Aquinas' view, one would have a basis for assessing the validity or invalidity of a human law. So, whether or not to conforms to the natural law insofar as a human law goes against what nature inclines us toward. it is not properly speaking a law in the ideal sense of directing us to the common good, but instead is unjust and can be called the matter it is called the matter of violence. Next is the three contemporary questions. So first, who am I? So Thomistic natural law interrogates the identity of the human person. So all human acts are moral acts. So in the first question, in which is who am I, is one of the endowed with his or her non-facticity, history, and abilities in his or her present reality or accessible through self-knowledge and reflection. So in the ethical man is the task of his or her free acts. So in the second question, who do I want to be? So the human person's self-knowledge is dynamic. That is, it is always open to the direction set, but what one wants to make himself or himself. So in the question number 2 is that the self-knowledge here is malleable towards self-determination. So in ethical acts give directions through a freedom just to build our own self into normal or in a particular good. So the last question is, how can I get there? So utilizes the sound judgment of human reasons and evaluates the best route to get the goal decided upon. So in the actions and routines, so in the third is self knowledge and self determination are her bridge by self governance. So in the last questions of the contemporary is that so the human person does not only access reason to assess his or her personal identity and goals. So remember, we have freedom to choose. So um, so we need to prove yourself, or in other words, um, we need to study hard and don't forget the God, because God is always there and helping our and helping and helping our needs, or in studies, just to achieve our dreams. Remember, study is the key to success our dreams. So next, in Thomistic philosophy, man is substantially body and soul. The soul is united with the human body because it is the substantial form of the human body. And in Thomistic philosophy, it is a principle of action in the human body. But the soul, however, requires the body as the material medium of its operation, particularly perception. So in soul has operative functions which do not need a material medium. They are the man's intellect and will. Thus, intellection and will remain in the soul, which is immortal, simple, of and in incorruptible. So body and soul before death are essentially united because the two exist in a correlative manner. That could be all. Thank you and God bless once again.